TAQ Capital, technical analysis quickly.
This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. Before taking any action based on the information provided on this channel, it is recommended that you seek the advice of a professional licensed financial advisor.
Let's do this.
All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm going to try to jump in and get out here. I don't want to make this a long one, but this video is going to be some good news for the Bitcoin bulls out there. This is what I'm seeing unfolding. Really quickly, for those that are day trading, this is the 5-minute chart, okay? We are working our way up this blue wedge here, or teal wedge, and we've had our 1, 2, 3, so the next stop is going to be 4. However, because we are in this white channel here, this one has to break down momentarily. And then I don't think it's going to be far down. I think we're going to drag this then down, and this is a sideways broadening wedge at that point. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 here, breakout will be up. But right now, this is an ascending wedge. So it has to break down at least a little bit. I mean, it could come down in this area before we take off. So then we would just drag that down to whatever point it hits, hypothetically here. And then we would be going up to make another hit off of this wedge. The top of the wedge. So this may not be this steep of an incline to where we're going to be hitting up here. I'm not saying that. This could just be simply moved there and then something to that effect. And we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4 before we come back down, break out of that one, and run back up again. Although, keep this in mind, when wedge trading, 1, 2, 3, this is 4, but this is also 4, this is also 4. So you can just pivot this to as steep as you need to go without actually having a retracement back down below. And then once it's settled on whatever that top is, then you're going to get that pivot down below. But also, remember this. This doesn't have to bounce back down like that. It can kind of do this number and then break out the side of this here, way up in here. It doesn't have to mean, a negative price movement change or retracement rather. So that's where we're currently at. But where are we actually going? For that, let me zoom out. I talked about this in my last video. The yellow is the wedge that we've been in since the peak of the market. And now we're way down here, okay? This is the June 18th run. And then we broke down out of that down to here. And it looks like we're forming a 1, 2, 3, 4 wedge. And this is actually ascending. So this is an ascending broadening wedge. And we have a target for the ascending broadening wedge of 29,845. Now, often, you'll overshoot that. You might even overshoot it by a lot. You could get up to 35,000. I'm not saying that's the case because keep in mind, we've got a lot of resistance in this area here. So coming up and challenging this area, which is this area, and getting rejected makes sense. And that rejection will then take us back down below the 17,764 mark. But that is still a run of 49%. So there's a lot of money to be made over the next week, maybe 2. Actually, that's not fair. This is the daily chart. So if I measure the bars out here, the June 18th run was actually 58 days. So we could be talking like 2 months that we're going to take to go up that 50%. Now, I mean, there's been a relatively bullish sentiment in the market here, starting on September 21st. And we've made it, quite a distance. And that's with people still thinking that we're going down to, 7,000. So if that sentiment changes, this could speed us up considerably. But yeah, I would plan, on at least a month for us to bang it out. Now, if we start getting, movement like this, that could get cut down substantially because this move was done in 5 days and it was a move of 23%. So Bitcoin can move when it wants to. So let's take a look at some of these other wedges that are playing out here now. This is also the daily chart. So we've got this cluster that's going on in here that is going to require us to zoom in a little bit more. But first, notice this green descending narrowing wedge here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're working on our breakout right now. So from there, where are we headed? Well, way back here, this white wedge is a 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're doing this up to hit it, and that's 28,000. And then we'll probably do something like this to break up out of it, and I think that's how we're going to get to that $30,000 mark. We had bearish divergence here on the daily, so this is indicating that we're going to be, thrust up. So I would definitely anticipate that. And not just the wedges are agreeing, but the Ichimoku cloud is agreeing. You can see that the Tenkan is closing up here onto the Kijin. And then as we explode through it, your candle's going to stand up like this. And then there'll be a brief retracement. And then we'll go up from there. And, right around that 30,000, I would say, is probably our target. Because, again, we've got all this resistance over here on the left side of the screen that we need to get past. So I would imagine we're going to get that rejection there, and then that's when we're going to come down. And if we're going to see the 10, 12, $7,000 mark, this $30,000 point is going to be the trigger that sends us back down there. But for my day traders out there, that's great news because you can long it and you can short it. So you can catch it on both ways. So this is the 4 hour. Zooming in here a little bit more, maybe we should even drop down to potentially the 1 hour. So we just shot up this red wedge. And we had our, well, let me back up here. Here's the white wedge. 1, 2, 3. And then we shot up here 4. And now we're doing this swoop back up to where we're going to hit it again up here somewhere. So I don't know, 22,000 potentially. But we're in this swoop up mode right now. And as part of that swoop up mode was the red wedge here, which was 1, 2, 3, 4. I gotta fix this line. There, that's better. 4, and then we broke down here, wicked out, bounced up, and then broke out of it. So then we're in this green symmetrical wedge here, and that's where we currently are. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're gonna break up out of that. And then if you look, this red wedge that started way back here, this is the one that we keep challenging. We challenged it there. We challenged it again there. Came close here, but didn't quite hit it. And now we're doing this swoop up to here. So technically the swoop goes from there to there in the shape of a W. So when this W completes here, you would take the height of this and stand it up here. And, just rough estimate here, this is going to take you around to the 21,400 area. And that should be the breakout that we're looking at. That will also break you out of this green wedge, which is the one I showed you earlier, that started up here. 2, 3, 4, and breakout. So we're definitely coming up this area. I mean, there's a lot of resistance in the Fibonacci lines and so on that you can see, but that's where we're headed, and it's just a matter of time. And now we're back down to the 1 minute chart. If you recall the way that I started this video, I said that this is going to break down, and it's going to make this a sideways broadening wedge. And then we've got our 1, 2, 3, now 4, and we're going to break up out of this white wedge. And typically on the 1 minute chart, you're looking for divergence. So we've got our lowest point here, which is not our lowest point here. So let me zoom in even more. Just in the time it took me to set this up, you had this massive wick shoot down. So you've got a higher point and a lower point, and you've got a lower point and a higher point. So these are going opposites. I mean, at first you had the divergence here, and that's what I was going to point out, that we went from high to low, and here we went from low to high. But now we've actually got it from this candle to this candle, and we've got it from, well, this candle area, because this is actually 2 candles, up to this one. So we're going to see how this plays out here. I'll check back. No, she's definitely not done. You've got it coming down at an angle, and you've got it coming down at an angle. So now we no longer have divergence. We had it for a second. But you can see how close these are, the Kijin and the Tenkin. We need a little bit more space, something more like this. So at some point, this is going to continue straight, while this is going to continue to come down, and that's going to create the mouth. But we're just waiting on divergence to appear down here because it happens 90% of the time on the 1 minute chart. So for a good trade, you want 1 minute. For a great trade on, again, swing and scalp trading, you want it on the 3 minute, possibly even the 5 minute. But if you hold out for the 5 minute, you're not going to get that nearly as often as you will the 1 and 3. And honestly, primarily just the 1. So I'm going to let this play out a little bit here, and then I'm going to check back in a few minutes and show you how it played out. So right now you don't actually have divergence yet. So what you'll often see is that as this starts to work its way back up, it'll get another rejection down here. This point will be higher on the RSI, but lower on the price. So when you get your divergence like this, that's when you know that was that spot, then you can jump in. And it's a good time because while the RSI is higher, the price is lower. So you're still getting it at a better price. Okay, right here you already have divergence because you see this candle here, this guy, actually lines up with the peak at the bottom. But you can see that the next candle wicks down lower, and yet here it's slightly higher. But that's weak divergence. It does work, but you may see this come back out and dump down lower, and then the RSI will come down here, and then you'll have the divergence like that. And that's more ideal. And as this plays out over the next 10 minutes, maybe 10 candles, you could start to see it on the 3 and 5 minute as well. I doubt it because this isn't going to be a huge move. You have to remember we're looking at the 1 minute candles here. So if we're talking about a move from here to there, well, it's a decent enough move. The percentage wise, it's actually only going to be 0.74%. And because I knew this move was coming, I set this orange alert. So that's what keeps popping up on my screen. But if I switch to the 3 minute, you can see that the Tenkin is swooping down like this. And often as the candles come up to meet it, the Tenkin will flick down, and that pressure that it puts on it, so to speak, obviously it's just a computer code, it's not actual pressure, but that pressure that you put on it will push it back down, and then that's when you'll get that difference. So we'll see how this plays out. And you can even see on the 5 minute, we haven't even started to pop down yet. So as this starts to come down and dump like that, that's when it can put pressure on the 5 minute as well. So just because you've got this now, don't think you're off to the races. Now you could be, but it's not necessarily the case because you've got some more kind of bobbing and stuff that goes on here before we take off. Now in the 1 minute, we've made it between the Tenkin and the Kijin. And this is your first safe spot. But the first safe spot doesn't always play out because as we, jump up and look at the 3 minute, we're still approaching up here to the Tenkin, and we can get rejected from the Tenkin, which on the 1 minute will actually break us back down below the Tenkin. And that you can kind of see here on the 45 minute chart being reflected because while we were inside the Tenkin zone, we have now been pushed through the Tenkin. Now I fully anticipate that we'll wick back up into it and then continue the other direction. But for now, you did get this push down out, and that can happen on the 1 minute, and that's when you would start to see that divergence play out because you would wick way down like this, and you'd get that there, but on the RSI, you'd have the opposite going up. Another thing to look at too is the wedge within the white wedge. 1, 2, 3, 4. So then we're going to break up out of this and head towards the white line and break up out of the white line. Now, often on these sideways broadening wedges, and I would say typically, like even 90%, you're going to see a bounce off of this, and then you go up. And you can see here now we're struggling with that Tenkin. Is that a bounce off of the 3 minute Tenkin? Nope, not yet. Didn't get rejected by it because it didn't touch it. But it's that same just bouncing back and forth that you get. I also draw wedges in the RSI. And, a 17 RSI on the 1 minute is not unheard of. In fact, if you zoom out even more, you can see all of these marks here that are lower than this. But being below the 30 RSI is a great buying. Yeah, it's a great buying area, but it depends. It's only a great buying area if it's being reflected as such up here. And right now it is, because we have two wedges that are telling us we're going up. But you could be on a meltdown, for instance. Let me see if I can find one. See, like here, this is a good buying area on the RSI. Sorry, no. I gotta turn that alert off. This right here, this is a good buying area on the RSI. So if you bought in here, you could have ridden it up to there. Great, but if you didn't cash out, dump. And that would be reflected as not a good buying area because you've got the orange wedge that is ascending, which means you have to break down. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and you've got to break down. Now the breakdown could be here and then go back up, but you don't know that. So you wouldn't want to get in on this, or rather, if you got in, because you wouldn't have seen the orange wedge at that point. If you did get in and you started to see the orange wedge play out, you could get out. And if you saw 1, 2, 3, by the time you hit 4, you're coming down. I mean, you may go up a little bit more to set a higher heights, but you're coming down. So at any point in this area, you could get out and just let it dump and then buy back in down here. This video is definitely dragging out longer than I intended, so my apologies there, but I do think this is valuable information because this is how you get into these trades. This is how you can pick this scalp trading up on your own. I mean, it's easy money. So far, you do not have divergence on the 3-minute because they're both doing this. And I really don't foresee us getting it on the 3-minute, but I'm a little shocked we don't already have it on the 1-minute. But it does happen, and that's why, guys, you have all these tools. You have wedges, you have Bollinger Bands, you have the Ichimoku Cloud, you can look at the RSI. You have all these different indicators for you to look at, and then, if you're hitting on 3 out of 5, it might be worth a shot. Use a stop loss if you get burned for $20 or $100, or even if you're playing with a $10,000 pot you're throwing at it, and you get burned for $500, $600, $700, the payout is astronomical on the ones that you hit. So you even lose 500 here and there. You're out 3 trades, you're out $500. That fourth one can hit for 15 grand. Well, realistically, if you're getting divergence on the 1-minute and you're not afraid to pull the trigger and get out if you see it going sideways, then you're not going to be losing money. I mean, the fees might get you, like for instance on BitGet, if you use a market order, you're getting charged 6% on the total pot. So if you throw 10 grand in there, you're going to get hit for $600 just on fees. But if you move like 1% at 40x, that's 40%. So you just made $4,000. But just remember, and my wife hates this analogy, but pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Don't be afraid to leave money on the table. Because, you make some scalp trades and you're playing it safe and you're really on top of your risk management. There's a lot less risk than you'd anticipate. It almost, once you look at all this stuff, it almost seems like cheating. Well, it looks like after all that, the only divergence we're getting is this candle to this candle is down. And over here, this candle to this candle is up. So this tiny little bit of divergence could be an almost 1% payoff at 40x. That's 40%. That's money in the bank. But I won't take up any more of your time on this. You get the point. So let's zoom out for a sec. The bullish activity that's been going on recently is so bullish, in fact, it's actually starting to affect the 4-hour. It's pulling up the Kijun towards the Tenkan, trying to reduce the size of this space because we're less bearish now, and we might linger in here for a minute before we work our way up. If you look at the 1-hour, the 1-hour is actually changed completely. The Tenkan's come down like this and is swooping back up towards the Kijun, whereas originally the Tenkan was above the Kijun, which you saw here. So the 1-hour has been affected enormously. 2-hour, these are side by side here. They're right on top of each other, which can go bullish at any point. Typically, though, you're going to see the Tenkan start to drop and try to snag these candles up into them while the Kijun continues straight, and then the Tenkan will cross over the Kijun, thrusting the candle straight up, while the Kijun continues to go straight. Now, if it goes extremely bullish, this will stand up next to it and, will be exploding through the green line. You can see that on the 3 hour, we've had the Kijun constantly, you know, flipping up here towards the Tenkan. So the space now between the two is much smaller than it was back here. And even back here, with as big as the space was, we barely broke below the Tenkan. I mean, we did here, we wicked way down. Um, but this had already become slightly smaller because it moved up like this, and then it just couldn't take it anymore, wicked down, and then we wicked all the way up there, uh, on the next 3 hour candle. So we've kind of been getting a lot of whiplash, but we're settling down a bit now, and then I anticipate this bullish move straight up. And here we go, checking back on the 1 minute. We've just had the Tenkan cross the Kijun, and we're off to the races. I mean, just this move here at 40x is 10%, because this is basically a 1/4%. So, if you threw in 10 grand and you're up 10%, you just made $1,000 in how many minutes? 20 minutes. I mean, that's not bad. And if you keep doing this with smaller pots, guys, you don't need 10 grand. You can throw $100 in. You do this 300 times, that $100 is going to be 10 grand. Then you've got your 10 grand pot. And now every time you do it once, you just pocket $1,000. And this move's not over. I mean, you know that this move is taking you up to this line here. So you're talking 40% on that 10 grand. You're talking 4 grand. And this will hit it. I'm willing to bet in the next half hour. So you can make 4 grand in under an hour. That's real money with minimal risk. Anyway, that's it for me today, guys. I hope you found this video helpful. If so, I'd appreciate a like, share, and a subscribe if you want more of this content. If you want more timely updates, you can follow me on Telegram, Instagram, and Twitter. And I try to get those up much faster, as you well know. Telegram is by far the best because I can throw stuff up there on the fly super quick. I put my moves up there, like jumping in at such and such a price. Every so often I'll include my stop loss and stuff like that as well. But if you want to make moves with me, definitely check out Telegram. But I'm going to head to bed. I'm absolutely exhausted. It's 1:30 in the morning and I got a full day ahead of me tomorrow. So signing out. I'll catch you in the next video. And if you're trading, again, don't forget to use a stop loss.